that I was maybe feeling a way that was different from my friends. Boys expressed interest in me, and when you're 15, that's addictive. So I very much did my best to have a little high school boyfriend, but it never really worked. And then, there were always kids in the halls. It was very, very popular when I was in high school to use "that's so gay" as a very pejorative, oh, that's so annoying kind of thing. And maybe not so consciously, but subconsciously, there was a part of me that was like, well, what if that's me? No, that's not me. Well, maybe, nah. But I just kind of ignored it, set it aside. And then I went to college, and I was away from those people who were using that language. And for the first time, I got to really choose my peers. And I ended up being friends with people who were already out and gay, and they would ask questions about me in a very friendly way, like, "What about you?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm definitely straight. Yep, that's me." Until it kind of became too much, just thinking about what I was not allowing myself to feel. I went to U of M out of high school, and I ended up not doing very well at all. I failed every class except for French, and I fled the country, literally. I ran away to Israel. My poor parents, I told them it was going to be a 2-week trip. I was there for 4 months, and in that time, I got to reinvent myself in a way that I had never anticipated I would be able to. I met a woman who was openly gay, and the pieces just fell into place. And so at 18, I finally kind of had a term for what I might be, for what I was feeling. And so I came home from Israel. My parents got me from the airport at like 2 a.m, and they were like, "We're so excited for you to tell us everything in the morning." And I was like, "Yeah, I've got some big things to tell you." And they were like, "Oh, well, if it's that big, you can tell us now." And I said, No, don't worry. Tomorrow's good. And they said, "Now." And so that's how I came out to my parents at 3 a.m, sitting on my luggage that I had bought intentionally because it expanded, so my parents wouldn't question why I had such a big bag for just 2 weeks. And so I had grown up with parents who were very loudly liberal. When we got to the age where dating was maybe okay, my brother and I both got the same talk, which was the rules. And it was no cigarettes, no tattoos, no motorcycles, no Republicans. Like that was that was it. That was what we were told. And so I had a pretty good feeling that they would be okay with it. So I said, "Mom, Dad, I'm pretty sure I'm probably gay." And my mom started like crying, and I had not anticipated that, and I was freaking out, and I was like, "Why are you crying?" And she just said through tears, "I'm so happy you felt you could trust us." And so my story is different from a lot of people's because I never had one moment where I wasn't supported. But the moments leading up to that support were so uncertain because of the way my peers talked. And I just feel very, very lucky to have had support from family and friends once I did come out. Now, I have a partner of many years, and we are looking at buying a house, and things legally are in our favor, maybe. And things are falling into place in a way that is not true for very many. So I'm glad I was able to go first, because I think sometimes the good stories are not told. To know that it's possible to be queer and loud about it and also supported and loved and happy that's a very real reality that can be everyone's. So thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Riv. A lot like Zoe's story. So are you telling me to speak louder? Hi, can you hear me better? Great. Basically, I'm going to start off by telling everybody here that I'm trans. And I'm also going to start off by saying, don't judge me for this other part, but I went to Ohio State. It's usually how I like to start this conversation. Basically, I grew up in Cleveland, and I grew up, obviously, as a boy. I have a twin brother and an older sister. Everybody's story is a little bit different for their experience and how they define being trans. I am only going to explain how it was for me and how I felt during those experiences. So basically, I started off running around like every other child. As I grew up, I started looking at the differences between myself and my brother and my sister. And as I was growing up, I started being told, okay, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're a boy, you're not allowed to do this. And it started developing a little bit of, I guess, anxiety and depression around just kind of being myself and doing the things that I like to do and experiences with. As I started growing older, I started developing a little bit of a hatred in terms of how I looked in my appearance and my physical, I guess, how I presented myself to people. Now, nobody knew this was going on. I ended up not coming out to a single person until I was in college, probably my sophomore year. At this point, I was very angry. I would act out. I would fight my brother. But I always knew that I was trans. I always knew that was the reason. But in my mind, that wasn't acceptable. I wasn't allowed to transition based off of things that I didn't know a single person that was trans when I was growing up. All I had from it was TV, which was basically if I decided to transition, I would have to live on the street. So it was not a great situation for me. I ended up going to Ohio State for mechanical engineering, like I think 50% of the people in Detroit. I work in automotive design now, and I started transitioning probably my senior year of college. I got to the point where it was either I kill myself or I transition. Now, thankfully, a lot of people don't have to get to that point, and a lot of people are able to get the experiences at a younger age that I wasn't able to do. I started my transition. I got on hormone therapy. I ended up getting multiple surgeries, and it's turned out extremely well. I currently have a boyfriend who's a doctor. My mother is very proud of me at this point, and I've gotten the acceptance of almost everybody in my life in terms of friendships, and I've just developed a crazy community here and support network. But throughout that transition, there was a lot of downsides. I was assaulted a couple of times by various people that I was close to. My parents took a lot of discussion and I guess reasoning. My brother was pretty much like, I don't really care, you're good. My sister, still I need to talk with, and I love her and she loves me, but there's a lot of discussion back and forth. Now, the reason why I'm here and the reason why I come out and I talk with people is because a lot of people don't understand that there are trans people in their lives all the time. There are trans people at the stores, at your works. I don't generally talk to a lot of people at my work anymore about the fact that I'm trans unless it comes up. But I've been outspoken in the past at different jobs that I've had, and it seems to be going well. I haven't had any issues at my work or employments or anything like that. But all I can say is things get better, and I would say not everything is easy from the start, and it takes a lot of work.
Hello? This is better? Yep. Okay. My name is Jeff. I am gay. And the story that I'm going to tell, it's not just about like my sexuality, but it also has to do with race and like acceptance of myself. So there's a few things that are going on. But so I grew up in Highland, Michigan. I was adopted at birth. My parents were white. I grew up in an all-white community. I lived on a farm. So, you know, when I was younger, when I was a kid, like I remember always being different. As far as like growing up in the area that I did, the first time that I really realized I was like different is that as a little boy, I remember walking across the street with my mom. I was young enough to be holding my mom across the street and holding my mom's hand while walking across the street. And I remember probably I was 5 being called a nigger by a total stranger. And then my mother told me that because you are black, there are going to be people that hate you. So that's the earliest that I can remember, like knowing that I was different. I also dealt with issues about abandonment and rejection because, you know, being adopted, wondering like what was wrong with me. As I got a little bit older, well, actually, I'll stop there. I'll say, also, I've always known that I was gay. I can remember, I don't know, 6, 7. And I want to let you know, like, my parents were very religious, and I also was homeschooled, and they were Pentecostal, and being gay was absolutely like not okay, not acceptable, and always preaching that you're gonna go to hell. Like the Pentecostal church preaches that the fire and brimstone, but especially for the homosexuality portion. But I do remember when I was young, like I said, 6 years old, I told my mom that I was never gonna get married, and she said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I don't like girls." And she thought it was really funny because this was coming from a 6-year-old. And, you know, she's probably thinking cooties, but little did she know that, you know, I was gay. From there, I was homeschooled, and it was really rough because I knew that I was not straight, and the religion and the church really was starting to take a toll on me, like looking back more than I realized at the time. And I decided to go to public school, and things seemed to get a lot better because, you know, I had friends, I was being accepted. That's what I wanted, is to be accepted. However, I knew that part of me I had to hold very close, not let anybody know. So there was this fear of exposure that I had every day. With the racial issues too, that played into a factor of me just wanting to be accepted by people and really feeling like I never was. When I got to high school, we had moved from Highland into Walled Lake, Commerce area, and it was a little bit more diverse and people were a little more progressive. And I remember going to high school and like with my friends, like growing up, like you would use the term faggot or gay. And every time that, I even use those words, but like hearing people say it, like I didn't, part of me really hurt every time that happened. But it was like I was kind of compartmentalizing, like trying to ignore that part of me. So, one thing I want to say is that, words do matter. For example, something positive, when I was in the 9th grade, I had a social studies teacher, somebody said faggot, and the social studies teacher, he, reprimanded them and said that was wrong and totally inappropriate. And that was really like the first time that I had heard somebody stick up for gay people. And, that felt really good to hear that at that time. But with everything that was going on at the time in the 9th grade, with my sexuality, the issues with race, and like the constant need for acceptance, I developed a lot of anxiety and depression. I needed an escape, and I ended up, I was a really good kid, and then when I was 15, I was hanging out with friends, and then they had heroin. So I figured, why not? And when I did heroin, I thought at that time, being naive, that it solved everything because I didn't care as much. So, as you can expect, that's what I saw, through high school. I had a heroin addiction, just to mask the feelings and the pain. I thought that this was the answer, and I thought in high school, I was just going to do this for the rest of my life so I could cope. And I didn't understand why people were so upset about it, because again, I was a little kid not understanding, having no interaction with that. And then I was told I would suffer consequences and that I could die and all this stuff, and I would say, that's not me. And when I was 18, right after high school, I had a very tragic accident that happened. Not to get it too much into detail, but what happened was just I was doing heroin with a friend, and my friend overdosed and died, and then I had overdosed. But then I was brought back, and then she wasn't. So what happened after that was, because when I went to the drug dealer, the drugs went into my hands, and then we shared them, that I ended up getting in horrible trouble. I had gone from, not getting in any law trouble to actually facing a homicide charge. So when this happened, I really didn't know what to do with myself. I'd been hiding, I had been running, using drugs. All of it just hit me at once. So what happened is I ended up getting charged with it and then going to prison at 18 to 22 years old. So after I got out, things were worse off. I was ashamed about more. Now, on top of everything else I was ashamed about, it was about, being a criminal or having gone to prison. By the time I was 25, I decided that I needed to change my life. And one of the things that I needed to do was accept the whole Jeffrey Poole package, or at least work on it, right? I needed to accept myself. And so I did. I went into therapy, heavy therapy, and then I decided to take abstinence from drugs and alcohol as my path to be successful. So during that time, and I forgot to mention this, but I did when I was 15. I just want to go back. When I was 15, I was getting in a lot of trouble, and my parents asked me, this is my coming out story, my parents asked me, or my mother asked me what was wrong. She was just didn't understand how I go from like this God-fearing kid to like a heroin addict, and pretty much overnight. And then I had told her that I was gay, and she was very upset. She was crying, and then my dad, he came home from work, and my mother made me tell him that I was gay. He was like, "Oh, that's fine, like, I still love you. What's for dinner?" And my dad, to this day, like, I've always been really close with him. I played sports, and he was a coach, and he was at every single one of my games. Like, he's helped me out a lot. But anyway, back to getting clean and accepting myself. So I had to go through therapy, and I would probably say that I still go to therapy today, because I think acceptance is not just something that is like a light switch that turns on, especially when you've dealt with trauma as a child and pretty much through a lot of your life, most of your life. It's something that you work on every day. I can see that from my recovery of not using drugs, and I want to say that I've been clean since February 2013, and I haven't used a drug or alcohol since. And this has been the path that I've chosen to be successful or to achieve my goals. After therapy and getting clean, I went to community college, and then from community college, I transferred to the University of Michigan, Dearborn. From there, I got my bachelor's degree a few years ago in information systems management. During that time, I've got a job in the corporate world. At that time, I was in the help desk, and currently I've changed companies, and now I'm an implementation consultant, so I implement software for corporations. Another thing I want to speak on is that coming out is something that also I think is it almost seems like I have to practice it, because it's more than just one time, like, especially when it comes to work. I had a friend at my previous job that I had come out to, and, we were friends and everything, and, I don't want to lie, right? I won't. But it's still, for me, is kind of awkward coming out to somebody. I just rather have somebody out me, like, for real. But yeah, so I just, one story, we were at work, and my friend was like, "Oh yeah, my so-and-so, right, wants to know why you don't like girls." Or, not, sorry, why, if you have a girlfriend. And I said that, I told him that I had designated him to be like my coming out ambassador, right? So I was like, "You had one job and you didn't do it." right? As a joke, it was kind of fun. But I mean, I will, like, I don't, it is a little bit awkward saying that I'm gay, like, to strangers at first, but it is so much better, and through practice, it's become much easier. Because like I said, like, that's one of my issues is acceptance. And I find that living my authentic self is the best way to go. And as far as like speaking on this, one of the reasons why I speak, I think it's very important. Words are very important. Like, I don't know, I grew up from my dad telling me the story, sticks and stones won't break my bones, won't break my bones, but words will never hurt me, right? So that, I'm sorry, I'm nervous. But like, man, I wish that was the case, but it's not. So I think that's very important to be conscious, like, when dealing with other people, just on how you speak. And I think another big thing is, which I think a lot of people can relate to, is self-acceptance. And being your authentic self, I think that's very important. And that's pretty much the main reason, one of the main reasons why I talk. Because it's a better world when you can be your authentic self and be accepted. But yeah, that's it.
I guess when you come late, you go last, right? So my name is Dawn Walton, and I am a proud member of PFLAG Detroit and an even prouder mother of a 19-year-old lesbian. I can't believe I'm emotional already. I used to say lesbian daughter, but then I realized that that was sort of redundant, right? If she's a lesbian, she's obviously my daughter. So I'm going to share my coming out story. It's kind of a fun story. This happened about 4 years ago. My husband, who's here tonight, and our son, who's 3 years older than Claire, we were sitting in the family room watching TV, the three of us, and Claire sort of skips in, and she says, "Would you guys like to know a fun fact?" And we said, "Yeah, we would love to know a fun fact, Claire." And she says, "I'm a bisexual." And we were all like, wow, okay. Just as a little side note, often it's kind of like a parent's joke or something that your kid will tell you that they're a bisexual. When they're really gay, they're sort of like easing you into it, you know, the whole idea. So that's what Claire did with us, but she's gay. She's not a bisexual. So then she kind of went around the room. She wanted a reaction from all of us. Now, I didn't know this about Claire. And you may say, well, how could you not know this about your kid? Well, I didn't know. She was not a particularly girly girl. I'm not a particular girly girl. I didn't know, right? So she starts with me. She says, "Mom, do you have anything to say?" Well, I'm a work in progress, and I knew that what pops into up here should not always pop out of out here. So I said, I don't know what to say right now, Claire. I don't have anything to say. So then she went to my husband, and he hates this part of the story, but I always share it because it's real. We're a real family, okay? And so she said, "Dad," and he said, "This is a phase, you will grow out of this," right? She said, "It's not a phase." So then she says, "Dylan, what do you have to say?" God love him. He said, "Claire, I love you, and whatever you need, I am here for you." Well, darn it, that's what I wanted to say. And I did say that to her later, but it took a minute for me. There was a little crying, and if I'm honest, I was sad. I was sad. I didn't know, right? So that took a little getting used to. I have a friend at PFLAG, and he says when the kids come out of the closet, sometimes the parents go in the closet. And I like to follow that up with sometimes it takes a minute, and it took me a minute, okay, just to wrap my head around it. My love for Claire was never in question. Our acceptance of Claire was never in question. But it surprised me and it scared me, right? So that's what took a minute. I like to finish the story with very shortly after Claire came out to us in this way. we went on this family trip. And so there were 16 of us traveling together, and the town we were in happened to be having a marketing campaign. Fun facts about Seattle. Okay, that's where we were. So the entire trip, unbeknownst to anybody, they kept saying, "Hey, Claire, tell us a fun fact." And Eric and I were like, "Please not now, please not now, please not now," because we weren't ready, right? It had only been a half an hour, and we weren't ready. So looking back on that, I wish that I had encouraged her to come out at that time. I did learn that coming out is her privilege, and she needs to do that in her time and in her way. But for our family, she wanted us to tell the adults of the family, right, meaning her grandparents. So she expected us to do that. And it took me several years to do that. I told lots of friends that were super supportive, and I started at PFLAG, and after a couple years, I thought, well, I better tell our parents, because this is going to come up again, right? So my mom, I was born and raised a Catholic myself, and unfortunately, my dad's gone, but he would have been awesome under these circumstances, but it was just my mom, and so finally one day I said, "You know, Mom, you love Claire, right?" My mom goes, "Of course I love Claire." I said, "She's gay." And my mom looked at me and said, "Well, I guess God made her that way." I said, "Well, I guess he did." So that one was super easy. So then came my in-laws, wonderful people. So I get my father-in-law on the phone, and I said, "Dad, Claire's gay." And he said to me, "So what? I'm short." I said, "Okay, well, that was really easy. I don't know what I was afraid of, but that was super easy." So I was glad I finally took care of that. It was something off the list. And when I told Claire, "Well, I finally told your grandparents that, that you're gay." And she goes, "God, I thought you did that a long time ago." I go, "I know. So we had that checked off the list. So I love sharing my story as a parent because I know, I've had the honor to know, that other parents have been better prepared, so that when they know that this story is probably coming from their kids, having heard my story, they are prepared to lead with love, because that's what they really feel. But sometimes, and it did for me, fear came first, and I forgot to right away say, "I love you," and the rest of it doesn't matter, and we'll figure the rest of it out. The fear is not gone. I mean, Claire's a super successful kid. She's a great kid. And I'm still afraid of what her life could be like. When I think about even living here in Michigan, here's a little political plug. We still need the Elliott Larson protections here in the state of Michigan, because my daughter could be fired from her job or thrown out of her home because of who she loves, because we don't have laws in this state to protect her. It's infuriating to me. So, of course, I'm still afraid of what her life could be like, and as a result of that, so there's still work to be done. So I saw this documentary once where there's a mom in the documentary, and she says that it's her job to fight for her child to have a normal life, and it's the child's job to live a normal life. So I can tell you that Claire is out there living her best life, and I will fight every day for her to have it be as normal as possible. That's our story.
I have been a board member of PFLAG, Parents, Family, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, which Dawn referred to. She's a board member also. And I think I've been, like I said, maybe 12, 13 years that I've been a board member. And we meet once a month, and I lead groups during that once a month at the meeting. And I tell people that when I lead groups of people that are parents, or lesbian or gay or sexual minority people that are in the group, maybe 7 or 8 people in my group each month, I continue to hear stories such as you have heard tonight, and we discuss those stories, go around the group, because I did a lot of work, group work in my life and as a social worker, And I tell people it never ceases to amaze me how much I learn from listening to these people. And I say, I don't know what they go through, because I don't, because I'm a heterosexual. But I got a better understanding now after years and years of hearing different stories, and hear the gut-wrenching and heartwarming. I like to try it as gut-wrenching and heartwarming stories that I hear. It continues to affect me as a human being. And I hope that affects you tonight also. And I hope that when you leave, I know you're all different stages of understanding and so forth, and compassion in this area, and you wouldn't be here tonight if you didn't want to learn more and understand more and show compassion to people. So I applaud you for that. So as you go and when you leave, that you do what Dawn said in her talk too, about having a responsibility to speak out when you need to. When you hear stuff, when you hear things that are said about LGBT people, that you speak out and you learn what it is about, and you speak out and you talk to people about that. I see we have a couple of police officers here tonight, and I appreciate the fact that you are here. And I would suggest that I've done this program at high school, like I said, to high schools, over 40 churches, senior centers. I'm willing to do this kind of program to anybody that wants to have us there. I have a group of people. These are 4 great speakers tonight, as you've seen. I have a list of people that I use for these different programs. And I'm willing to, I love to do the presentations because I continue to listen and learn. So if you, after the meeting or so forth, if you have, or you want to get in contact with me about another program to come to your organization, whatever organization that may be, it's free of charge, we would be happy to do that. Just another quick story of when I worked at the high school as a social worker about coming out, that one of the boys that was there was a superstar athlete on the East Detroit High School football team. He was the captain of the team, and it was his senior year, and he knew that I had used him to help me out with other kids in my caseload. I never had talked to him about gay kids or anything like that, and he heard that I had some kids that working, and I had groups that support gay kids in my school, in East Detroit High School, and there were some kids. There was a kid in the school in a classroom that was spouting off about gay wad, making fun of a kid that he thought was gay. And the teachers would call me and say, "Hey, Joe, we got another kid that's talking about the gay thing. You want to do something?" I said, "Yeah." And so this kid had come to me like the day before I got that phone call from the teacher. And he said, "I've only got like a month to go in school here. I'm the captain of the football team. I've been dating girls, so forth. Doesn't do anything for me." He said, "Mr. Tillman, I'm gay." I said, "Wow." I said, "Who knows?" He says, "Nobody." He says, "You're the first person I've told. I got to figure out how to tell my parents." And the next day, I called him in. I said, I got a kid that was called gay wad, made fun of in one of the classrooms. In fact, it was a senior class. You probably know the kid." He said, "Oh yeah, I know the kid." I told him the name. I said, "I want to go down to that classroom." I said, "Are you ready to come out to the kids, to that classroom? I'm sure the word will spread real fast before the school day is over, and people are going to talk about you being gay." And he says, "Yeah, I'll do that." So I took him into that classroom, and he talked to those kids in that class. And I'll tell you what, I never forget that talk. He said, "When you say this to this kid, this is what it means. I'm gay." And the kids in that class just went nuts, thinking that this big burly captain of the football team was gay. Had no idea. And he told them what it meant when he heard people saying that and how it affected him when you say that to this kid and that kid. And I'll tell you could have heard a pin drop in that classroom. And it was really something, one of the best talks I've ever seen a kid do. So I'm going to have question and answer. I just want to let you know that if you know a group that wants to hear the stories that you've heard, type stories tonight, I would be glad to do that for you. Just let me know. So I guess we're going to have questions, comments. Doesn't have to be a question. It could be a comment that you wish to make. And we have a microphone. She's going to go around, and you can tell her your question.
Just call it out and I'll repeat it. So
Okay,
stay,
and then-
stay where you are and I will stay where I am. How's that? And I do have water. Sorry, Dawn, I brought 4, but I can get another one if need be. Does anybody need water? Nope. Okay, there we go. I'll leave these here just in case you change your mind. You ready for one? All right. All right. I didn't do my water duties earlier. What questions, what comments would you like to make? Actually, first, before the question, I think we have heard some incredible stories and passionate advocacy for many, many people. So I would like to give these courageous people a round of applause. All right, sir, please.
I had a question. I have 2 kids, one recent college grad, one still in college, and you have Ohio State. For them, it just seems like such a non-event if they have friends or acquaintances. Are we going to, by osmosis and just progressiveness, get to a point where nobody has to worry about being gay in grade school and then in high school and then in college, or are there still pockets where it's such an issue that's a long way away?
Okay, for the benefit of those listening on the live stream, the question was whether, since younger generations seem to be just by osmosis or just by whatever process, more accepting by and large, is it possible that this will become a non-issue at some point in our lives together?
Okay, so I agree. I think young people, my daughter's generation, those kids are awesome. They're so accepting of each other. They don't really care about the differences. And the few kids that are out there that care, they learn that at home. And I applaud you for coming out here, but I think we're the generations that have to change. So we have to become more accepting. We have to let go of things that we may have been taught or heard over the years. But I think you're right. Younger people are super accepting of each other. I've seen that in my daughter's life. Her she came out at school like we were the last to know. But we did everything. We did homecoming. The first couple years she went with a boy. The second couple of years she went with a girl. We did prom. We did all of that. The kids didn't bat an eye. Like they were super accepting. So you're exactly right. I'm hoping the adults will learn by osmosis, but I got a feeling it's going to take a little more work than that. So I challenge all of you to carry that message, right? Like we have to start accepting everybody just right where they are. So.
Yeah, I'll talk to that too. So I think that there are some very conscious activism that's happening that is helping increase acceptance. In a lot of professional situations, people are asking and freely giving their pronouns. This action of saying, what are your pronouns, helps to normalize people whose pronouns may not be, either she, her, or he, him. It normalizes the free giving of this kind of information and the free acceptance of it. And I think the other thing that's really important to keep in mind is that the language we use, we need to be ready to change it. The pushback that you get sometimes when you try to correct someone's language, or if you try to correct someone when they misuse pronouns, for the reaction to be, not retaliation, but defensiveness instead of acceptance is, I think, a really important frontier that we need to get past, that defensiveness against being corrected. if we can let down those defensive barriers, I think a lot more people will feel a lot more ready and willing to share their truths.
Thank you. And one note I will make to our live stream friends, we understand that there have been some sound issues, and our plan is that we will post a recording of tonight's gathering so that others may hear it in its entirety later on, and even folks here tonight, that you'll have an opportunity to hear it again if you need to. All right, gentleman in the dark blue sweater.
It's about 100 years ago, when some of us grandparents went to school. There was a guy by the name of Sigmund Freud. And most of our psychology classes in college thought that it was a cultural, environmental thing for people to become grown up as gay. And I think most of us, because of many of the things we've learned since then, realize that it's more of a reform, it's something that is day up. So, but my question would be, what are we doing as a policy? Dawn was talking about being a parent, a gay person, some of the laws. What policies should we be endorsing and looking to make it a better and open community for all?
Yes, what policies of openness, what ways, governmental, social, do we need to be pursuing to help to open up acceptance in all avenues?
Hi, I promise I won't capitalize on all the answers. But my answer happens to tie into both the last question and this one. There's a lot of censorship of gay content in media, particularly in children's media. People say, oh, we can't show kids this. Kids can't know about this, because there's this assumption that gayness is inherently sexual. And that comes from some of these older lessons that we're taught, that it's a deviance, right? That it is a choice that's made. It's a weird perversion. It's something like that. But when we start to realize that this is something that kids experience, kids who are 5, 6, 7, it's not a sexual thing, and we need to, I think, come to a point where we're allowing it to be shown and represented. Queerness and, gender identity differences and expression differences. Trans people are so underrepresented in media, it's mind-numbing. But to actually get that representation and to emphasize that it's appropriate. And not only is it appropriate, but it's needed, I think that'll make a huge difference.
I would like to start off by saying that in terms of the legal aspect and the policy aspect, most of what we've seen in terms of at least the trans community and most of the LGBT community as a whole has come within the last 5 years. And it's kind of been crazy that I think, okay, I've only been in Detroit for 5 years. When I came here, legally speaking, most of the trans community, if you came from Ohio and you hadn't changed your identification, you could not change your gender on your ID. I still cannot change my birth certificate in Ohio, no matter what I do. It's a law that states it is a frozen piece in time. Now, every single other identification that I have and can do, change easily. And I changed almost everything before I even came to Michigan. But there are certain policies and certain segments that are just crazy. And everything changes by state for a lot of different levels. And so when we start talking about, okay, we're trying to move forward within marriage. So when marriage came in and there's certain policies that state, okay, now we're going to put gender onto marriage licenses. And that marriage license has to be specific towards your birth certificate. Okay, so now I have to go and I have to look and and see whether or not that's still a policy anymore within the last, I think, 2 years. When myself and my boyfriend are planning to get married, and we have to consider, okay, the Supreme Court's changing within the next year. What's going to happen to the marriage laws in the next couple of years? Are we going to need to make sure that we get married more quickly? Are we going to and we shouldn't have to be worrying about that, to be honest. We should just be able to go and be with each other and go into a courthouse or go in and take a boat and have fun and plan things out for years to come, but we don't have that choice. I know that, I think 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you had North Carolina where I couldn't enter a bathroom. And for somebody that's been assaulted numerous times and I can't go to certain states that have those specific of laws and policies. And I know that a lot of things are progressing in terms of the osmosis, but to be honest, there are so many bubbles still here. When I took a trip to India, again, 2 years ago, and I was visiting a friend's wedding. And one of the other people, a lot of us were engineers, and one of the people were from Kentucky. And I told somebody else that I was trans at that wedding, and that person told them, and they basically said they didn't tell me anything, but they would scream out that they were uncomfortable anytime that I entered within 5 feet of them. Now, I didn't know that they were uncomfortable with me. They would just say that. So I was like, I didn't know what to do until eventually I figured out that they were specific about me, that they had found out that I was trans, and it didn't take a crazy amount of time, but it took longer than it was appropriate for that wedding. And they ended up just attacking me personally for walking around the wedding and taking pictures because I was asked to by the photographer to take pictures of the photographer at the wedding. And I left the wedding early because I couldn't deal with that. So when we're talking about these bubbles of communities and where it's appropriate, even if everybody is going to say something back to that person, you're still and this person was my age, she's mid-20s. There is not that level within this society yet. I'm thinking it's going to take quite a bit of time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I did have a story. I told Joe this, I think, it was 1978, and I worked for Ford, and my job at that time was to train people as they came in, spend the day with me. And he had somebody come in. He was a man, and he came to Ford because it turned out they would pay for the trans operation. And after about a year, he came in one day and told HR that he was coming in as a woman the next day. Or 1978, that was, something totally unrealistic, in terms of what people were thinking. And they stopped him, and the big issue was what happened, what they're going to do is they ended up locking a small bathroom or something like that in the meantime. But what his group did was they had a party, had a cake, and they said it was a going abroad party. Okay, which I thought at that time was quite liberal. They were trying to show acceptance. But my question is, in the time of political correctness today, would you be offended if somebody did that?
Right. Would you be offended if someone?
If somebody had a going abroad party when you change from a man to a woman.
Okay. I guess a lot of it would be language. What language feels accepting, what language feels offensive, as people are sometimes running and sometimes stumbling toward understanding and compassion.
So, as many of you know from sexual harassment training and harassment training in general within work environments, harassment is based off of how the person feels. That specific scenario is going to be dependent on that specific person. I know that if you give me cake, I will ignore almost everything you say. That is how I am at work. I don't know if that person would have felt like that was harassment to them. They could have, yes, but it's just going to be dependent. Sorry.
No, I think that's an honest answer. I appreciate the reality of that, because as we continue also to understand gender equality issues, what feels like harassment to one woman or one man may not feel that way to another. And so I think the question that needs to stay on our lips is this okay? And let each person describe his or her or their truth to us, and to be able to accept that without being defensive. Okay, I'm about to sermonize, so next question. Is there another question? Yes, way in the back, Brenda.
As a bystander in a public situation, what can I say that would be helpful if I hear someone saying remarks that are inappropriate and hurtful, hateful? How can I, as a bystander, be a constructive ally? And I'm sure the answers may vary, but maybe you could provide some sentences or some tools that we can take back with us to use so that we can be an ally, an effective ally.
Okay, a beginning toolbox for allies. What are some things that we can say and do that are truly helpful?
All right, hi again. So I think if you perceive that there's any possible risk of violence, and this may seem like a big ask, but to put yourself in front of the person who might be at risk of receiving violence. Most of the time when there is a situation where there are words that are being said that are inappropriate, that doesn't escalate to violence. Mostly it is just people being people and reacting to something that they perceive to be different. But as someone who is visibly queer, under this hat as a buzzed head, and, walking around with my partner who is also very visibly queer, we have to be cautious, because there are times and places where we know that that location has a higher risk of violence. So just being aware that for someone who's receiving that language, the language isn't all that's on their mind. There's the risk of violence too. The physical presence of someone who is not visibly queer, who's willing to step in and say, hey, I'm here and I'm looking at this and I'm seeing what's happening, and you should take a breather, take a breath, back away. That can save lives.
Zoe, explain what you mean by the word queer. Changes meaning over the years.
Yes, okay, so I've been asked to give a brief introduction of the term queer, which I use quite freely, frequently, and lovingly. In the past, queer was used as a slur to antagonize LGBTQ people. The Q in LGBTQ stands for queer. And it's a term that's been reclaimed, and it's also been embraced as something of an umbrella. So, like, for me personally, lesbian doesn't sit right, because I've been partnered multiple times with people who don't identify as women, who are non-binary, which means neither man nor woman, or trans, and so lesbian just doesn't fit very well, so I like queer because it is being embraced as an umbrella term. It's kind of just like not straight. I think that does it. Yeah, that's queer.
Thank you.
It's also very political.
So I was just going to share something you may not have noticed about me, but I sport a rainbow pretty often. So I have my socks and my buttons. So that's one way that I like to identify myself as an ally, because I want people to know that I support the community. So that's not for everybody, but my initial thought to answer your question was that I would park myself right next to the person that seemed like they needed me. And I might say something to them like, I'm here with you, or I see you, or I'm with you, or just, hi, I'm Dawn. And just so that you know, wherever you need me to go. I'm an attorney, and I sometimes do court in the schools, and I like to wear this little pin that I have it's hashtag I'll go with you. And it's a movement that lets people know that if they were trans and they wanted someone to go to the restroom with them, I'll go with them. And the young kids know what that is, and they know what that means. And so I often wear that pin so that they'll know that I'm a safe person that would go anywhere with them. And I'll stand right next to you and park myself between whomever I need to. I'm not very big, but I carry a big stick and a phone, and I'd call the men in blue to come or the women in blue to come and help as well. So I think presence is very important, just to show that we're here, we see the community, and we stand together.
Thank you. All right, I think, yes, sir.
I have a question. I hope I can say this correctly. I heard Joe mention quite a few times there are young kids that come out to their parents and their parents totally agree with help. And so if you're gay or lesbian or Christian or anything, the question I ask you, how do you, in your relationship, if you do have one or not, it's personal, how do the young people, do they struggle to feel loved by God? Or is it, when you come to terms with yourself and everything, do you realize that he does love you because he created you? But there are so many people that are willing to tell you, because you are gay or whatever, that you are not worthy of God's love, and that you will go to hell. But how do you cope with that in finding your relationship with God? I just question to know that you are truly loved, but are those, when you meet people who struggle with it, what do you tell them?
Deep question, and one that I will invite you to answer or not, as it feels comfortable. But how do you construct your relationship with God, and how did you make that journey?
All right, for this question, like I had said before in my stories, that I grew up very religious, and I don't know, this is different for my story. Was I'm not religious now. Part of my self-acceptance was becoming more agnostic or an atheist and pulling back from religion. But I have, since coming out, seen different interpretations. And I've seen Jeff from P-Flag, he was a Methodist pastor, with his interpretation of the Bible. And it was more of a message of love and like taking it emphasizing that Jesus never said that. I find that comforting, although I'm not a Christian. But I think if I was to be religious again, or to be a Christian, I would come from that perspective that, you know, God loves all people and he's about love. And the going to hell is like a misinterpretation. I've had conversations about that, and that's what I come to in my mind. Like if I was like looking at the Bible, even though I'm not a Christian now, but I feel that there's a, you know, misinterpretation of that and that God loves everybody. So I don't know if that answered the question, but this is just like what's on my mind when that question came up.
I think telling our truths is answering the question. Thank
Yes.
you. Yes, going to go here and then back to Brenda. Yes, sir.
In your work with this community, though, have you also come across situations where a parent or spouse comes out to their children and spouse?
Okay. When an adult, a parent, comes out to family and to partner, how does that go? What has been your good? I think it started with Joe, and I think others could answer that as well.
Yeah, I it's happened a number of times. I know some people that used to be board members of PFLAG, and they were two guys that both knew they were gay years and years ago. They're not as old as I am, so they're not that old. But they grew up knowing they were gay. But years ago, what you had to do if you wanted to be accepted was to get married. They both got married to their wives, different times. They both had kids, and after about one of them was married for 25 years, the other one about 20 or 30 years. They got divorced from their wives, and then they met, and they became friends and partners together themselves. So it's a thing that does happen, and we know that there are a lot of married people, married men and women that are married that are gay. I mean, that happens, and that is happening. It does happen, and it has happened, and it is still happening because they feel they are more accepted that way, and there are many stories about that. So, yeah.
We have about 5 minutes, so we'll take this question, and we might have time for one more.
A couple of comments. As a United Methodist minister, I want you to know that we are working to change the exclusionary part of our denomination. It's one of those bubbles that has intolerance, and we're working to change that. We're also working to change the legislature in Lansing. It's very important to flip the state house and the state senate in order to get the Elliott Larson bill passed. And if you happen to live in Troy, one of the best things you can do is go for Representative Pablo Cuba. Thank you.
Okay, not so much a question as a statement, another way that perhaps you could be an ally. A final question, yes.
I just want to commend all of you for being an education partner with us. My husband and I have a family member, a male who is gay. He's about 25 years older than I think all of you. And we've never met a boyfriend, a partner. He keeps it under wraps for the family, which I consider a pity. He's not living his true life. Have a birthday party, have a wedding, So I really commend all of you for helping all of us hear the truth. It is chugging along, and I know your stories are difficult, and your lives have been difficult, but power on, you're doing a good job.
Yeah, thank you for your witness. All right. Are there any final things that you would like us to know tonight?
I just want to, once again, thank everybody for, by the fact that you're here is good for us to see. And the more people come that want to learn, and I continue to learn. I've learned so much every time I do it. I say, I'm still learning. I am still learning. And I've dealt with a lot of these issues for many years as a social worker and as a board member of PFLAG, but I still got a lot to learn. And you all still have a lot to learn, no matter what your situation is. And I thank you very much for coming, and a round of applause for our wonderful presenters. Let me know if you want to have this program in any other place. Thank you once again.
Thank you once again, Joe and panel members, Ricky, Dawn, Jeff, Zoe, and Joe, for making an impact clearly, not only on these people and the 20-some people watching at home, but all of the people that will be impacted by these people. It's a ripple. Thank you, Pastor Weatherly and Troy First members and our AV team in the back for hosting us. And thank you to those who've attended this program here or at home. At this time, a little housekeeping. I remind in-person guests to please wear your masks as you exit the building and until you enter your car. While we look forward to a time when we can resume some normalcy in our interactions, at this time, for your safety, we ask that you please do not linger inside or outside of the church to socialize. Thank you, stay safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you at our next program. Have a good evening.